Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz. And today we're going to be discussing Ronald Gene Simmons. So from December 22nd, 1987 to December 28th, 1987, Ronald Gene Simmons terrified Dover and Russellville, Arkansas. Now, Ronald Gene Simmons is someone whose murder spree killed 16 people over the course of a week. But that isn't even the worst part about this. So, he was a retired military serviceman from the Air Force and from the Navy. He would marry his wife, Rebecca Olibari, and they would have 7 children together. Now, during the course of his military career, he would excel to eventually hit the rank of Master Sergeant. But with all the positives, there also comes negatives. In April of 1981, he would be investigated by the Department of Human Services in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. I bet you're wondering why. He would be investigated due to sexual assault allegations that apparently he was committing against his daughter, Sheila. It also would come out during this time that he actually fathered a child with her. Now, absolutely fearing being arrested, he would uproot his entire family later in 1981, and they would move to Ward, Arkansas first, but ultimately they would move near Dover, Arkansas in 1983. They would reside on a 13-acre property that would be called Mockingbird Hill. Now, this property consisted of 2 mobile homes that were near each other. They were kind of here and there, and then there was kind of an adjoining annex, if you will, that connected them together. Due to the home not having any plumbing, he forced his family to dig up cesspits that they could obviously defecate in. He also put up a makeshift privacy fence that was about 10 feet tall, or as tall as 10 feet in some areas, just to make sure that his family had enough privacy. Back to kind of the cesspit thing, this is an important detail I want you to keep in mind. He made them dig 3 of them in particular on the property, so just keep that in mind. So Simmons would work low-paying jobs in Russellville, which is nearby. He would also quit his position of being an accounts receivable clerk at Woodline Motor Freight due to reports of his sexual advances on other workers. He then would work for Sinclair Mini Mart for about 1.5 years prior to his crimes, and he would quit there on December 18th of 1987. Now, I do want you to know that 2 of the older children, Billy and Sheila, they were married with their own families who did not reside on the property. I want you to know that. Now, this is an absolute warning about what I will be talking about. This is the most horrific case of familicide I have ever read. If you don't know what familicide is, basically, familicide is when one family member kills the entire family. So on the morning of December 22nd, 1987, Simmons decided he was going to kill his entire family. He just decided. He would start with his wife and his oldest son, Gene. He bludgeoned them both with a hammer before shooting them with a .22 caliber pistol. He then would murder his granddaughter, Barbara, who was just 3 at the time, by strangling her to death. He would take their bodies and put them in one of the 3 cesspits that he forced his family to dig. He then would wait for the other children until they came home from school for Christmas break. When the other children arrived, he used a ruse of having a gift for them. He would then kill his 17-year-old daughter, Loretta, via strangulation while holding her under a rain catch barrel. So kind of like Chinese water torture, but also with strangulation at the same time. His 3 other children, Eddie, Marianne, and Becky, were all killed in a similar fashion. He then proceeded to dump their bodies as well in a cesspit. So he would kind of hold off until December 26th. And this is when the remainder of the family would arrive for Christmas. The first he would kill would be his 20-month-old grandson, Trey, and he drowned him. This was the son of Billy and Renata, and both of Billy and Renata would be shot to death by Ronald. Now, after he killed them, he then would wait for Sheila and her family to arrive. He would proceed to shoot Sheila and Dennis McNulty, which is her husband. And following shooting them, he then would strangle Sylvia Gale of whom he fathered with Sheila, as well as 21-month-old Michael, his grandson, which is unfortunate that he killed his grandchildren, but in this dude's mind, he needed to, apparently. After killing all of them, he then would cover their bodies with coats after laying their bodies in neat rows in the lounge or the living room. Sheila was the only one that wasn't covered with a coat. She was covered with a tablecloth that was actually Rebecca, Ronald's wife's favorite tablecloth, apparently. Now, as for the bodies of his grandsons, Trey and Michael, he would wrap them in plastic sheeting and left their remains in abandoned cars at the end of the lane that the family compound resided on. Now, after committing his full act of familicide, he would go back to a bar in town for a drink before going back home. Just went on his merry way, you know. Just normal. I just killed my family. Meh. So on the morning of December 28th of 1987, he went to Walmart in Russellville. This is where he would purchase another firearm. He then would target a law firm, which is where he met a woman named Kathy Cribbins Kendrick. Apparently, she rejected his sexual advances. I'm sorry, I don't know. He's not good. Yeah, no. But so due to this, he then decided that he was going to walk into the office and he was going to shoot her. And this killed her. He then went to the oil company office, of which he completely intended to kill the owner, Russell Taylor. You see, Taylor was the owner of the mini mart of which Simmons used to work for, the one he quit on the 18th. But when he went to the office, he would shoot not just Taylor, but a man named James David Chaffin. And there was another employee who was shot, but the bullets missed him. So Taylor was wounded, but Chaffin did succumb to his injuries, unfortunately. He finally went to Woodline Motor Freight Company. He then shot his former supervisor twice. She was wounded, and then he ordered one of the employees to call the police while they were at gunpoint. When the police arrived, he surrendered without any resistance. On this day in particular, his rampage lasted about 40 minutes, and he killed 2 and injured 4. So once he was arrested, he was submitted to a psychiatric evaluation, or to have a psychiatric evaluation done, and he was found fit to stand trial. I don't know why they wouldn't find him not fit to stand for trial, but whatever. He would be sentenced to death in the trial first of Kendrick and Chaffin, and this is in May of 1988. He then would be tried for the murders of his 14 family members, and he was found guilty on February 10th of 1989. He even released a statement asking that his sentence be carried out quickly because he didn't want to sit on death row for a long time. While he waited on death row, he was separated due to being threatened, mainly because of his crimes. He also refused any of his appeals because he just wanted to die. On May 31st, 1990, the Arkansas governor at the time, Bill Clinton, future president at this time, or now ex-president anyway, he signed his execution warrant on June 25th of 1990. He would die via the method he chose, which was lethal injection at the Cummins unit. Absolutely none of his remaining relatives would claim his body. I wouldn't. And he was buried in Lincoln, Arkansas in a potter's field.